The world changed in less than a week. Without warning, the sky tore open and the Vakari Dominion arrived. Towering warships, black as the void, drifted above cities, casting long shadows that never left. Earth's strongest defenses, satellites, missile networks, elite air squadrons, were destroyed like they were made of paper. In cities like New York, Tokyo, and Berlin, chaos took over as the alien machines landed with perfect coordination. Their weapons were silent, clean, and unstoppable. Within days, the governments began to fall. Entire communication systems collapsed, leaving people blind and afraid. No one knew who was still alive or who was in charge. Among the scattered survivors and hopeless soldiers, a few small resistance groups formed. In the ruins of what used to be the United Nations headquarters, a scout named Leon broke a decades-old protocol and sent a secret message to a man long forgotten by the world. Captain Elias Cross, once a top military strategist, now lived alone, in the outer desert, away from people who had mocked him for predicting an alien invasion years ago. Disgraced and bitter, Elias had left everything behind. But Leon found him. She reminded him of the warning he gave and how no one had listened. She wasn't asking for hope, just for a chance. Elias didn't answer right away, but something in her eyes reminded him of what he had once stood for. He agreed to return, but only if he could lead the mission his way. When they returned to London, it was no longer a city. It was a battlefield of smoke and broken stone. As Elias met with the resistance, a young technician showed him something strange. Buried deep beneath the city's wreckage, a strange pulse was detected. It was not Vakari in nature, nor was it from any known human system. It repeated every 47 seconds, like a heartbeat under the rubble. Some thought it was a trap. Others believed it was a forgotten human weapon waiting to be found. Elias stared at the map and the signal pattern for hours. Something about it felt familiar, but he couldn't place it. "Whatever it is," he said finally, "we have to find it before they do." As the team prepared to enter the underground tunnels below the city, none of them knew that this signal would soon change everything. And somewhere above, hidden behind the clouds, the Vakari had already noticed the pulse too. Under the broken streets of London, where silence echoed louder than explosions above, Captain Elias Cross led his team into the dark tunnels once forgotten by time. The walls were cracked, filled with dust and ash, but they held secrets no one expected. Guided by the pulsing signal, the group followed narrow paths until they reached a thick steel door, half buried under rubble. After hours of careful clearing and decoding, it opened with a low hiss. Inside, they found a hidden research facility, covered in dust and overgrowth, untouched since before the invasion. Screens were dead, wires dangled from ceilings, and old warning signs glowed faintly in emergency light. The lab had been a top-secret site where scientists once worked in silence, reverse engineering scraps of alien tech recovered from early, unknown encounters. Most people believed those rumors were just stories, but Elias now stood in the middle of living proof. In the heart of the lab was something labeled Project Spectre, a device with glowing rings and a control panel surrounded by thick manuals. The records showed it was a stealth system designed to bend energy fields around human bodies, hiding them from all sensors, including heat and motion. It had never been tested outside simulations. The scientists had vanished before they could finish. Elias studied the project and understood the risk, but he also saw an opportunity. If this worked, they could move unseen in a world completely watched by the Vakari. He quickly gathered a team of trusted survivors, an ex-soldier with a sharp eye, a young hacker who once broke into satellite networks, a quiet engineer who spoke only when necessary, and surprisingly, a reprogrammed Vakari drone that now answered to human voice commands. With this small, unusual group, Elias aimed for something bigger, a strike against one of the Vakari's main relay stations, believed to control parts of their invasion forces through high-frequency signals. The team spent days preparing. They repaired old Spectre suits, tested movement in darkness, and mapped a silent route to the relay station. Tension grew with each hour. Finally, when all was ready, they activated Project Spectre. One by one, the suits shimmered, and the team vanished from scanners and visual feeds. It worked. They were ghosts. Hope sparked in their eyes, and for the first time since the war began, Elias allowed himself to believe this mission might succeed. But just as they stepped outside the lab, the sky above the ruined city flashed a strange color. All around the world, Vakari ships emitted a sudden pulse, low and constant. Within minutes, people who had been hiding, fighting, or surviving fell to their knees. Their eyes glazed over, and their minds went quiet. The aliens had activated something new, a global mind control broadcast meant to silence the last bits of human resistance. Elias and his team, still hidden under Spectre's protection, were immune to the wave, but they knew time was now even shorter. If the rest of humanity fell under the Vakari's control, they would be alone in a world no longer free. As the team moved out, shadows flickering behind collapsed buildings, Elias realized this mission was no longer just about striking a target. It was about saving what remained of human thought before it vanished forever. The world had fallen silent under the weight of the Vakari mindwave. Cities that once echoed with chaos were now still, their people standing like statues with empty eyes, caught in the grip of something unseen. But Elias Cross and his team remained free, hidden by the power of Project Spectre, moving like shadows through the ruins. Their hearts beat faster with every mission, but their presence was never detected. They became whispers among the wreckage, striking quickly and vanishing before the enemy could respond. They destroyed alien supply lines, disrupted data towers, and rescued engineers and scientists who still had the will to fight. One of those rescued was Aria Mendez, a brilliant but quiet young woman who had once worked on soundwave technology, in a forgotten underground lab. She studied the Vakari signal day and night, often falling asleep with wires tangled in her hands. Then one night, with a weak smile and wide eyes, she made a discovery. The Vakari psychic control system depended on a delicate psionic frequency, and she had found a rare harmonic pitch that could interrupt it without harming human minds. It was not a weapon in the usual sense. It was a sound that could confuse and break the aliens' hold without firing a single shot. Elias saw hope in her eyes and knew they had a chance to fight back. But they needed a way to send that counter-signal across the planet. After long hours of planning, they set their sights on a Vakari broadcast ship hovering above the eastern's ruins. It was heavily guarded, but if they could sneak aboard and upload Aria's frequency into its main channel, they could break the alien control and wake the world. The mission was dangerous. No one had ever stepped foot on one of those ships and lived to tell the story. But Elias believed it was now or never. With the Spectre system keeping them hidden, the team climbed ruined towers, crossed broken highways, and made their way into the airfield where the ship anchored. The night air felt heavy with tension as they moved inside, using the Spectre cloaking and silent signs to communicate. Inside the alien vessel, the walls pulsed with dim green light, and the air carried a strange humming vibration. As Aria worked on connecting her device to the ship's control node, something felt off. Elias had a soldier's instinct, and it screamed in the back of his mind that they were being watched. Moments later, it all went wrong. Alarms that shouldn't have detected them began to sound. Security drones closed in from multiple sides, and the ship's systems began to counter their stealth. Someone had betrayed them. In the chaos, Elias gave orders to split up, buying time for Aria to finish the upload. He didn't know who had given them away, but the timing was too perfect to be chance. As his team scattered through alien halls, pursued by sharp-eyed drones, one question stayed in his mind. Who among them had sided with the enemy, and why? The mission wasn't over, But now it had become something more than survival. Trust had been broken, and the enemy was no longer just outside the walls. It was walking beside them, wearing a human face. The truth hit harder than any weapon when Elias finally uncovered the traitor. Commander Ryle, a man once trusted, now revealed to be a collaborator with the Vicari. Ryle had not turned out of greed or fear, but from belief. He saw no path to victory, and thought surrender was the only way to save what was left of humanity. In his eyes, Elias was delaying the inevitable and putting more lives at risk. But Elias had seen this mindset before in war, the kind that gave up too soon and opened the door to destruction. With Ryle's betrayal, the enemy had nearly gained full control of the ship, and for a moment, everything seemed lost. But Elias, calm even in chaos, played his final card. He faked a full retreat, ordering the team to scatter and shut down their signals, making it appear as though the mission had failed. The Vicari, fooled by the sudden silence, pulled their forces back slightly, thinking the humans had abandoned their attempt. In that brief window of lowered defense, Elias and Arya made their move. They slipped through the quiet corridors of the alien ship, floating in the strange gravity field, where every step was more like a drift. Inside the control core, surrounded by humming lights and alien scripts, Arya connected her device to the main broadcast hub. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what they were about to do. Elias stood watch, his eyes sharp, while above them the ship's systems began to stir again. Just before the drones could return, Arya activated the harmonic frequency she had discovered, a soft tone at first, then growing into a steady pulse that echoed across the entire network. The effect was almost immediate. All across the world, from bunkers to forests, people frozen under the Vicari's control suddenly blinked and gasped as if waking from a deep dream. The psychic grip broke. Soldiers looked at one another in confusion. Civilians cried out in relief, and resistance fighters everywhere realized they were no longer alone. Sparks of rebellion lit up across continents. In every corner of the earth, humanity began to rise again. The Vicari, for the first time since their arrival, seemed unprepared. Their systems faltered, their coordination weakened. But Elias knew better than to celebrate too early. Through the ship's high observation window, he saw it, descending through the clouds like a dark moon, the Vicari mothership. It was larger than any vessel they had seen, casting a shadow so wide it seemed to cover the land itself, and on board that ship was the one known only as the Overseer, the commander of the invasion and the mind behind the psychic wave. Moments later, a deep voice echoed across every channel, every screen, every frequency. The Overseer had spoken. His message was clear and cold. Surrender Earth completely, or face total annihilation. There was no emotion in the voice, only certainty, as if he believed no force could stand against him now. The team stood in silence inside the broadcast ship. The moment of victory now weighed down by a darker threat. The battle had been won, but the war had only changed shape, and Elias understood that the final fight would be unlike anything they had faced before. The Vicari mothership hovered like a dark mountain above the clouds, unmoving yet full of threat, as if it were watching the earth with cold patience. Inside the resistance bunker, tension crackled like electricity. The counter-signal had worked, but the victory was short-lived. The Overseer's message made it clear. Earth had only bought time, not peace. Elias Cross stood in front of the war table, studying the ship's patterns, the enemy's behavior, and the silence between each alien move. Then he made a decision no one expected. He laid out a final plan, one so dangerous it sounded almost like madness. He would lead a small team onto the mothership using Spectre cloaking, sneak into the core command center, and implant a Trojan frequency into the main AI. This signal wouldn't just crash a system, it would twist the command code into a feedback loop, shutting down all Vicari fleet coordination at once. But to succeed, The device had to be planted manually and activated from inside. It was a one-way trip. The room went quiet. Some begged him to rethink it, while others offered to go in his place. But Elias had already made up his mind. He chose Arya, the mind behind the signal, and 2 others he trusted with his life. They suited up silently, knowing that what lay ahead was unlike anything they had faced before. As they reached the edge of the mothership through a stolen enemy craft, the Spectre system kept them invisible, but it couldn't shield them from the feeling of being watched. Inside the ship, everything felt alive. Walls hummed, lights pulsed. Like veins, and strange figures moved in patterns that made no sense to human eyes. They avoided traps, dodged scanning drones, and moved deeper into the alien command. But the closer they got, the tighter the space became, filled with alien defenses that adapted to their every move. At the final chamber, they were surrounded. The Spectre system began to fail under the ship's core pulse, revealing them bit by bit. The enemy moved in, preparing to crush them. That's when Elias played his final hand. He triggered a false signal, one that mimicked a ship-wide self-destruct. The Vakari instantly diverted all systems to stop the explosion, turning every eye toward Elias. Alarms flared, lights shifted, and the alien AI focused everything on neutralizing him. But that distraction was what Arya needed. With shaking hands and sweat on her brow, she connected the Trojan signal and launched the frequency directly into the AI's neural core. For a second, everything froze. Then, like lightning tearing through metal, the command system crashed. Lights died, walls dimmed, and across the planet, Vakari ships jerked out of motion, losing direction and order. Resistance forces didn't. Wait! They struck at once, reclaiming territory, pushing back, shouting not in fear, but in fury and hope. The tide had turned. The invasion collapsed, not by brute strength, but by human cleverness, sacrifice, and an unpredictable move no machine could have predicted. When it was over, Arya and the others searched for Elias, but he was gone. No one saw him escape, and no signal traced his path. Some believed he died in the blast of the core. Others thought he had vanished into the wilds like before, watching from afar. But his name spread through every camp and city that rose from the ashes. His story was told not as a legend of war, but as proof that one human's courage, in the darkest moment, could break the mightiest empire. A single sentence was written on walls, spoken in songs, and passed from voice to voice as the earth began to rebuild. Never underestimate a human with nothing left to lose.